Welcome to our podcast. I will be your voice, stories of homelessness and hope. I am your host, Melissa Turnpaw, Youth Development Coordinator with the Center for Schools and Communities. I want to welcome Walter Harris, Disabled Restorative Justice Volunteer, and Emma Grimm, Housing Coach at Westmoreland Community Action, to the podcast. Welcome.
Welcome.
So I am going to just explain a little bit for our listeners, just the connection with Walter and Emma. So we actually received your names from Region 5, Wendy Kinnear, who is the regional coordinator for her area that oversees specific counties for ECHIA, for students experiencing homelessness. And so she had said that you guys would be a great addition to the podcast and being able to kind of share your experiences as being former homeless individuals. So thank you again for being here. So I'll go ahead and get started just with our first question here. So Walter and Emma, I just want to thank you for taking the time to be with us today. We thought it'd be impactful to have a formerly homeless youth share their experiences and story with us in hopes to raise awareness about homelessness. So if we could just take a moment for both of you individually to kind of share and start from the beginning about your personal journey with homelessness, what ended up putting you in that situation, and where were you residing at the time of your homelessness?
Yeah, if you like, I'll go first. Emma. Hi, my name is Walter Harris. I'm 54 years old. I reside in Allegheny County of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on the south side. So my first experience with homelessness, I was rather young. I just remember in my early years, from like as far back as I could remember to about 10, we were real stable in our home situation. I'm the next to the youngest boy of 7 siblings. I have a little sister that's 3 years younger than me, and then I have 5 other siblings older than me. And so I remember being stable. All of my sisters and brothers are have the same mother and father. My parents kind of separated, not fully separated, but my father started some mischievous behavior. My mom ended up in a coma. She took a bunch of pills. So we started residing with my father's mistress. And when my mother came through and we moved, from that point on, my father was in and out of our lives. So that's when we first started. I first started experiencing instability, and that's a term that I just learned too recently. I didn't know that term till I started association with the COC. But so the first experience was coming home from school. I think it was maybe 1981. I was 11. And then seeing all of your belongings on the sidewalk. Asking what's going on, and my mom saying we have to move. And it's like, well, where's the moving truck, and why is all of our stuff outside?
Right.
That was my first experience with eviction. Didn't really understand why. I just know that we couldn't pay the rent, and so they were putting us out. It was an embarrassing situation. The first time it was a shock. Can't even remember how I felt. I know it was a flood of different emotions. But this happened again. So the second time, I knew what was happening. And I had developed a mindset to get me through it. One thing with dealing with traumatic situations is once they start occurring frequently, you find a way to cope with them. whatever that is, and you move on. So my mindset became, well, I don't care. I'm not embarrassed, uh, whatever, because I'm moving to another neighborhood. It ain't like I'm moving around the corner. I know wherever I'm living, I'm going to another place. So the people, I don't have to worry about being teased about this in school tomorrow because I'm gonna be in a different school a week from now. And so that was my experience as a youth. I guess I could save the adult experiences for the incarceration question because that's how I experienced it as an adult.
Yeah, no, that would be great. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. And Emma, if you could give us some background, kind of just what your experience was also.
Hello, my name's Emma. I am a child welfare and youth homelessness advocate from Western Pennsylvania. For me, my first experience with homelessness on my own was probably when I was 17, although I was still in foster care. So if you would ask Child and Youth Services or HUD, I wasn't technically homeless, but I did live in a youth shelter. I stayed there for probably about 3 months, maybe longer, until I was old enough to sign myself out. I turned 18 there, so I got sick of it. They had told me that they were going to find home with a family, but time had passed that I was tired enough of waiting and signed myself out. I tried using a Section 8 voucher that I was given. The Children's Bureau provided it to me, but they didn't help me use it at all. And I couldn't find anywhere that would rent to me without a credit score or a cosigner. So I stayed at friends' houses for quite a while, just couch surfing. I'm not sure. I've been moving all around for as long as I can remember. Truthfully, more years. I've moved more times than years I've been alive. So I think that has definitely affected who I am as a person. But I have been stably housed for a while now. I became a student in 2019 before COVID, which is actually what got me out of that situation. And when COVID hit, I was able to stay with my grandparents temporarily. And we rekindled that relationship enough so that could happen. And I was finally able to move out and live on my own. And that's what's going on now.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. So I know, Emma, you just kind of made a point about how you think it has shaped you as a person, but how do you also think it has shaped your perspective on youth homelessness?
Well, for me, I think that I learned it's deeper than just the situation you see, and it continues to affect you even after you're housed, potentially for the rest of your life. So, housing instability for me is still a big fear, even though I have been housed consistently, and it affects your mental, your physical health, and the choices that you make moving forward. I also think people don't really understand that it can happen to anyone. It doesn't really matter if you grew up in poverty. There's a lot of youth that experience that just because of conflict in relationships with their family. That's something that I learned.
Yeah, no, that's important. Thank you for sharing those insights. And Walter, I know that you kind of hinted to our speakers about like talking about like the imprisonment. So I'd like to move forward with that conversation. Just how was it for you during that time? And then how did like this experience of imprisonment and then coming out really intersect with your struggle with homelessness, both as your youth self and as an adult?
So as a youth, outside of the times where we faced instability as a family, I really wasn't affected because the juvenile system and the adult system is different. Whereas the juvenile system really they're not as harsh. I'm gonna use the word harsh for lack of a better terms, and far as approving your housing, meaning if you had a home that you was removed from wherever you was sentenced, if that space was still available, then that's just where you went. In the adult system, they want to inspect. So if there's another felon living in a house, you can't go there. If it's Section 8 or any type of state housing programs, you can't go there. If there's a whole bunch of different reasons to have your home plan denied in the adult system. In the juvenile system, you just return back to your house. Something just occurred to me that I never even put together. I never correlated my experience with being eviction with my choice to be self-governed. What I mean is, when I was 13, I decided I was going to take care of myself. I wasn't going to rely on my parents. I wasn't going to rely on society or anybody. And I was going to do it by any means. The means that I had available to me at that time was boosting or shoplifting, as I called it. So that's where my romance, for lack of a better term, with the system began. I started shoplifting. My family couldn't afford housing. They couldn't really afford clothing. Even though my mom, she did buy school clothes, but, the world was becoming materialistic. When you got a lot of sisters and brothers, there's not a lot of money. Welfare doesn't pay enough to really provide. So I found a way to get nice clothing on my own. I started learning how to steal it, and I started going in and out of detention center. And with that came hanging with the wrong crowd that also got into trouble. So there was a lot of things happening. But I had decided that I was going to take care of myself. I was going to provide for myself. But I never connected that to my housing instability till just now. But in the adult system, every time I got ready to come out of prison, it's funny because I went straight from the juvenile system to the adult system. So I was in and out of Schumann Detention Center, but I was never sent to a juvenile detention. Like Allegheny Academy was the first placement. It was a daytime placement, meaning I went to school, I lived at home, but after school I had to go to their program from 3 o'clock till like 7 o'clock. And then I had a curfew. And so I was dealing with Allegheny Academy for like a year. I got extended there. I got in more trouble while I was there. It wasn't until, and that was 86. So from 83 to 85, I was getting away with stuff. 86, I got placed for the first time Allegheny Academy, and I dealt with them till 87. And then in 88, I went to Vision Quest. And during that whole 5-year period, I was just, I was getting better and better at what I did. I was an honor roll student when I went to school, but I left school because it didn't coincide with the lifestyle I was living. And when I went to Vision Quest in '88, I turned 18 in Vision Quest, but it's a program that can keep you until your sentence is done. So I came home in September of '89. And when I came home in '89, the whole world was different. Crack cocaine was on the scene, and everything was changed from that point on. And so I entered the adult system 3 years after I got out, and that became my pattern in the adult system. I went to prison I got out of Vision Quest in '89, and then I went to prison for my first time in '92. I got out of prison in '92, and then I went back to prison. I mean, I got out of prison I got out of prison in '94, and I went back in '97. I got out of prison that time in 2007, and I went back in 2010. And it wasn't until 2010 in federal prison that I decided to change my life and to live by a different code. I found my faith. I started practicing my faith. I was in federal prison for 130 months. During them 130 months, I unlearned all my mischievous behaviors, and I reprogrammed myself to live for God, for Christ. And 130 months in federal prison became seminary to me. And I came home and I got involved in restorative justice work, and that led me to the COC, and now I sit on the Homeless Action Board, and I'm being nominated for a co-chair for the Reentry Committee for Western PA's COC, and also belong to the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee. And I volunteer for a whole lot of community organizations, but I have a different perspective on homelessness now because what we see today, like when you go downtown or you anywhere all over the country, it wasn't like that. And then it's not just what we see, like Emma said, it's what we don't see. Mm-hmm. We don't see the teenagers that's couch hopping. We don't see the women and children that's living in unsafe, unstable housing, but they're dealing with domestic violence, but they have nowhere else to go. We don't see the people, the women, the single moms that's being evicted, or the landlord's trying to kick them out because they reported something that's wrong with the house to Section 8. It's so broad now. And what's being done?
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And just despite, I know you went through a lot from your young age to getting out of prison, but how your whole life has just turned around and the perspective, and now you can be such a voice to those younger than you and those experiencing the same thing. So I'm glad that you've been able to kind of take the hardships and being able to use them for the better. And that's awesome. And just developing who you are as an individual. Emma, I know that you and Walter, there is a age difference between the both of you. So I'm curious to hear how you think your perception and kind of like the challenges that maybe he was talking about, like just how times are different even now, or even when he came out of prison. But like for you being younger, what do you think are some of those different challenges that you may have had versus what he may have experienced just with times changing?
Well, I think there's definitely a lot of differences between 1989 and now. But don't think that like gets in the way of us working together in any way. Like, I think as long as we're both willing to learn from each other, that it can come together in like a very powerful way. Um,
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think being able to have the different perspectives and the different generations and experiences, you definitely can kind of lean on one another and share just kind of the experiences you've gone through and just being able to like bounce those different perspectives and experiences. Do you think that like as a former homeless youth, like I know that Walter kind of just hit on it. I know that you did somewhat too, but how like the concept of how you guys are saying you don't always see the kid that's couch surfing or you don't always see the mom and child that's in an unhealthy environment. How can you elaborate on like how society can do better at like listening and like allowing those experiencing homelessness or those in unsafe situations to better be heard and seen? And either of you can answer that question.
I think what could improve, the first step would be including people with lived experience in the processes of changing systems is the first step. And that's why I began advocacy work. That is really what helped me myself, even on a personal level. And in that, my goal is that others will feel seen in the response system that is supposed to help them.
Yeah, so I want to piggyback on that real quick with what you just said about wanting to become an advocate for change. So, how do you see yourself like in your role right now? Like, what ways do you best advocate for those experiencing homelessness? Are there like specific resources or opportunities you provide? Are you providing different coaching? Can you kind of explain a little bit more about how you're kind of knee deep in the work?
For me, I first became involved with an advocacy group called Advocates for Change, and we basically work with the Western Pennsylvania Continuum of Care. Walter was talking about the COC. That's how we know each other. So I serve as the co-chair of this youth action board. There's probably 10 of us right now, and it's really cool being able to like lead such a passionate group. And alongside from that, I've been able to get a lot of support. So I was connected with my current job. I work at Westmoreland Community Action. You said earlier that I was a housing coach, and this was true, but as of the beginning of April, I was actually moved into a navigation role. So I'm doing regional navigation for any youth that's experiencing homelessness within the 20 county region of Western PA. I would be like a point of contact and a person that would help them navigate the system because it's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. So, you mentioned the COC. So, Walter, can you give us some background for our like audience who may not understand what COC is? Can you just give a little bit of detail on what that might be and kind of like your role?
Yeah, so we were just at a retreat, and we were talking about how we defined ourselves. So the continuum of care is made up the Western Pennsylvania COC is the 20 counties in the west in Western Pennsylvania, excluding Allegheny, where I live, and Erie, and is it Butler or Beaver? Emma?
I think that it's Butler, but also Somerset.
Yeah, and Somerset. So it's a network of of all the social resources in the area that's dealing with homelessness. Well, not all of them, of a lot of the resources. And their mission is to make homelessness rare and non-occurring. Did I say it right?
Rare, brief, and non-recurring. Yeah.
Rare, brief.
And I think the goal would be to have all of the services in the same room, just so we could create a coordinated plan throughout the community, because I think that's really what's needed, since it does affect on so many different levels.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that so that our audience has a better understanding of just that reference of that COC. And Walter, I know in reading your bio, you are very heavily involved in the community. I know that you mentioned some things when you were sharing your story about kind of redeveloping who you are as a person. But something that like really struck me was the Fathers on the Move that you're involved in, and just kind of the role that you take in that. Could you just explain kind of some of the day in, day out of that program? What made you want to get involved? What you do within that role?
So when I was in federal prison, a program came. I was in a medical facility. I'm disabled. I was diagnosed while in federal prison with muscular dystrophy in 2013. The disease progressed. I went from walking to walking with a cane to walking with a walker, and then in 2018 to being confined to a wheelchair. Just giving you a history, I went into prison walking and came out in a wheelchair. But I took a program called Fathers on the Move. It's a mentorship program. It's the CEO and founder of Fathers on the Move was incarcerated 25 years ago. He walked out of a state prison, and like me, he found faith. Faith changed his life, and he wanted to give back. So he started a program to help fathers become better communicators and to deal with their issues and to set goals and to create a space where men can really learn how to communicate. And so the program was instrumental. I was already on that path. I already had a lot of insight to what I wanted to do or what I was called to do when I left prison. But Fathers on the Move became a vehicle. So I took the program. It's 2 levels. You graduate from the first level, you get a certificate, and you can go on and graduate from the second level and become a certified mentor. So I left the prison. I left the prison before I could take the second program. I stayed on the compound, but I went to a medical facility on the compound, and then COVID hit, and then I was released on compassionate release. I reached back out to Bishop Glover. He is a bishop in the church. So he was coming in with the program, which is not a spiritual program. It's not a Christian program or any faith. It's just a program for men. And then he was also coming in to the chaplain because he's a bishop. He's a church planner. He became like a surrogate father to me, and I reconnected with him. I got in the program. I graduated from level 2, and then I got trained as a mentor. And I do a lot of other stuff with him spiritually. The program in Pittsburgh, I haven't actually launched it, even though I have been mentoring some youth. And I do have some people from Pittsburgh that's graduated from the program. I'm trying to bring a team here. Initially, I was going to take the program to George Jr. We had got the approval. We was just waiting to go take the training. But it's a 12-week program. It's a level 1. It's a level 2. There's a Sisters on the Move. There's a Youth on the Move. Great program. He has a 98% recidivism,
Wow.
meaning only 2% of people who complete the program recidivate, which is great. He was the first program that I've seen ever the whole time that I was in federal prison where he had 120 people start the class and he graduated 110 people.
That's remarkable.
And it was people of all different faiths. It's federal prison is a hostile environment when it comes. There's a lot of division when it comes to what people believe as far as faith. So he had people of all different faiths in the same room for the first time. So I am a leader and a site leader and a certified mentor for Fathers on the Move Pittsburgh, and I'm slowly integrating that. I want to specifically target the youth, but I can't be selfish because the program ain't just for the youth. But that's just
where your heart's at.
My heart is for the youth.
Yeah.
Because one reason, if I'm not going over, is because when I was growing up in the 80s, there were guardrails in the community. There were lines that didn't get crossed, and it kept things from getting out of control. Well, again, when crack hit, everything changed, and over time, the guardrails got knocked down, and now the violence that you see is a result of my generation chasing crack dreams, spending decades in and out of prison, and the youth growing up without any type of role models or mentorship.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That sounds like an awesome group. I didn't even realize that there was a Sisters on the Move and a Youth on the Move. So that's great that they're just kind of targeting all populations. But I really do hope that you can get your program up and running, even if you have to be selfish, because you can have a passion for youth. But I think it's great that you're working with a diverse group of people. So Emma, if you could answer this next question, would there be any like specific examples or insights from your own personal experience that have informed your approach to addressing homelessness?
So I think my work with the Youth Action Board has been heavily impacted by my work at Westmoreland Community Action doing direct service, and also vice versa. I think I'm able to bring what I've learned about the COC, what I've learned about the programs through the Youth Action Board to my job, and I'm able to advocate for the youth in our programs on a different level that most other people have seen. I think it's kind of unique for someone to experience a trauma and then go into that same field. I know other people that do it, but I think it's a good characteristic to have.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think it takes a special person, and who better to fit a role who's someone who has actually experienced it and can kind of give that insight and guidance. So I thank you for that. So we're going to start wrapping up this podcast, but I do want to ask the both of you if there are any words of wisdom or advice that you would like to share with our audience about advocating, listening, and or how they can support youth experiencing homelessness in their communities. So either of you can answer that.
Well, I'll go. About advocacy, I think if you have lived experience yourself, doing advocacy work has been so impactful on my life and healing experience that I was able to turn that into something actionable. So I would always encourage people to do advocacy work, even if you're an ally. And if you're experiencing housing instability right now, I want people to know that there are resources, even if it's hard to find. There's people out there that can help you. Myself being one of those people. And if you are a capable adult, you're able to be that resource yourself. Just having social support can mean the world for someone. So.
Yeah. Thank you. Walter, what about you? Any words of advice, wisdom, ways people can advocate and contribute to their community?
Yeah, I think just really not judging people by their situation or their background. And I remember being at a DEIB meeting in the COC, and we were talking about homelessness, and a person calling a hotline in the middle of the night because they don't have anywhere to go, they're cold and they're hungry, and the person on the other line being real insensitive and telling them to go here or do this in the morning. And we were thinking about if there was a person with lived experience that was answering them phones, they would be more empathetic and they would have a more timely solution. So just people just being empathetic of when you come across, because when you look at what's going on in this country, it's like something that we didn't really talk about, but it's dealing with like lookism. When I go downtown every day, there's a bunch of homeless people. There's a bunch of people down there with mental health issues. There's a bunch of people that people want to get away from. They label them as dangerous or hostile or whatever. They don't know what's going on with these people. If you just talk to some of them, you'll see that they're very they're human. You know what I mean? They're just in a bad situation. But we have people coming into this country, and I'm not against that. That's what makes America great, because they'll take people that's leaving hostile environments. But we got people right here in hostile environments that can't get help. You know what I mean? And then it becomes a competition to who gets the resources. And not only that, when it comes to families, you got people that'll tear families apart. You got a struggling mother that's on welfare, and she's raising these kids by herself, but you'll take her kids or her child and give them to somebody else and give them $1,500 a month to take care of that child. Well, why not give that mother $1,500 a month to go with this welfare that she's getting, and instead of breaking that family up? So we just got to be real. We got to really rethink things in this country, how we're doing business, how we're dealing with our own citizens, because if you're failing your own citizens, this country is failing at being a great country. You know what I mean? So we just need to rethink that. Everybody at the table just need to rethink how they're doing things and just make it make sense.
Yeah. And put themselves in someone else's shoes, as hard as that is to physically understand and mentally be able to have that in full capacity. But yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. So with that message, we're going to close our episode of I Will Be Your Voice, Stories of Homelessness and Hope. Thank you, Walter and Emma, for being with us today. I really greatly appreciate it. Just sharing your experience, wealth of knowledge in the field, and just how you guys are giving back day in and day out. So I just want to say thank you.
You're welcome. Thank y'all for having us.
Thank you.
Awesome. So to learn more about different organizations that Emma and Walter participate with, please check the resources for this podcast when you go to our podcast website. So thank you for listening to I Will Be Your Voice, Stories of Homelessness and Hope. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please check back and tune in again.